Chapter 28. I shut my eyes. The heat burned my skin. My face felt on fire. I tried to breathe, but the air burned my nostrils, burned my throat. The oven rumbled loudly. A wave of heat knocked me to my knees. Can't breathe. Too hot. Behind me, I heard a cry. Mr. Pinker? The tray shook beneath me. I struggled to keep my balance as the tray began to move again. Out of the blinding heat of the oven, into the cool air, the tray swung high. Then it landed gently back on the white kitchen counter. I wiped the sweat off my face with both hands. I brushed back my soaking wet hair. When I could finally see again, I gazed up at Mr. Pinker staring at me. His eyes bulged and his mouth was wide open. He gaped at me through his owlish glasses. "Stephen? Is it you?" he murmured. My mouth felt burning hot, so dry I couldn't speak. "Water," I gasped. He filled a glass of water from the kitchen sink, but the glass was too big for me. He shook his head, thinking hard. Then he returned with a tiny plastic measuring spoon filled with water. He held it for me, and I lapped up the Kool-Aid like a dog. When I finished, he set the plastic spoon down and brought his face close to me. "Stephen, how did this happen to you?" "You know how," I screamed. "Your cookies." "Excuse me?" He scratched his fingers of hair. "My cookies? What about my cookies?" You put something in them," I cried. "Your cookies made me shrink. You want to put me in that town you built." Mr. Pinker squinted down at me. "My cookies? I didn't put anything in the cookies, Stephen. They're supermarket cookies." I gasped. "Huh?" "They come out of a tube. I get them at the market in the mall," he said. "You just slice the dough, roll them into balls, and put them on the baking tray." I blinked a few times. My heart was pounding. "You don't add anything to them?" He shook his head. "No, just slice, roll them, and bake them." But, I sputtered, "all those dollhouses." "It's just a hobby," Mr. Pinker said. "I love building things." I stared hard at him. He was telling the truth. He didn't shrink me. I was back where I started, clueless. He brought his face down closer to me. "When did this happen to you, Stephen?" "This afternoon," I said. "I did a magic act at school, and when I got home, I shrank right out of my clothes." "Home," Mr. Pinker repeated. "Home. Aren't your parents home? Have they seen you? Have you told them?" "What time is it?" I asked. He glanced at the kitchen clock. It was a big copper-colored sun. "It's nearly 8:30, he said. "They must be home by now." I nodded. "Yes, probably." "They must be worried about you," Mr. Pinker said. "They'll worry even more when they see me," I replied. I'm so sorry," Mr. Pinker said. "I've never seen anything like this. Except in movies, of course." He pulled out his cell phone. "What's your home number?" I told it to him. He tried it. "No answer," he said. Next, we tried their cell numbers. No answer. "I'll take you home," he said. "We'll wait for them." He picked me up around the waist and carried me out to his car. He set me down in the passenger seat. "The seatbelt is too big," he said. "Just hold onto the door handle." I had to reach up to grab the handle. Mr. Pinker drove to my house very slowly, even though there were no other cars on the street. He kept asking me if I was okay. How could I answer that question? I knew maybe I'd never be okay again. He pulled the car up our driveway. Then he carried me to the front door. He stopped when he saw two men sitting on the front stoop. They were both young and dark-haired and had solemn expressions. They both wore white lab coats over white pants. They had small badges pinned to their chests. They jumped up when we came close. One of them reached for me. "We've been waiting for you," he said. 29. Next time, peeps. Have a good day and be safe.